This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would stand with me, I'm going to ask Commissioner Martin to lead us in prayer and our pledge, please.
Let's bow our heads. I'm grateful, Heavenly Father, once again we come before you this afternoon with thanksgiving in our heart. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for life, health, and strength. We ask, Heavenly Father, that you bless this meeting, bless everyone that's in attendance. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for attending that's here in person and the ones on the phone. At this point in time, we will do the adoption of the agenda. Do we have anything, additions or deletions for the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I need to amend the agenda to
Yes, Commissioner.
include the Bill Moore and College roads on Locust Grove for consideration for speed bumps.
Okay, we will put that on item number 5 on Public Works.
Yes.
Your name on it, Commissioner Scott. Okay, do we have any more additions or deletions to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0, Billy. At this time, I'm going to have petitions from the public. If you are here to speak about a topic that's going to be later in the agenda, I will call on you at that time. But if you want to, you feel free to. But if not, if you will wait, I'll call on you when that comes up. Do we have any petitions from the public, either in person or online?
Hey, Mr. Commissioner. Hi, my name is Robert Hall. I don't know if I've been added to this agenda. I was supposed to be on the last meeting, but I had a family emergency. Calling in about an easement issue in Lamont, Florida, on the Madison County side.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hall, you are under new business number 5 on number 3. Excuse me. You'll be called on at that time, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other petitions from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the petition section. We'll go to the approval of the minutes. We have the regular minutes on August 26th, budget meeting on August 24th, a budget meeting on August 25th, a regular meeting on September the 9th, budget meeting on September the 9th, and a special meeting on September the 10th.
Move approval.
Second.
Made by Commissioner Kelly to approve, second by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0. This time I'm going to open it for constitutional officers. Sheriff, I know you had something for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Two things briefly. The first, I just wanted to give a thanks to our county road department, and our property out there that actually belongs to the county that I maintain. Back gas pumps, 8-foot pothole there, that was about 6 to 8 inches deep that we tried today. We just simply asked Lonnie if they would come out and investigate it, see if there's anything they could do. They did, and they promptly filled it, repaired it, and that is very beneficial to us, and I appreciate it a lot. And I know they don't get thank yous for what they do, and I just want to make that public, and I appreciate it, and the guys appreciate it. So I wonder we don't have a bunch of front ends knocked out. Secondly, I just wanted to ask you may or may not have seen recent legislative proposal by Governor DeSantis. It's called Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting in the Law Enforcement Protection Act. It's a very distinct bill regarding those things we just mentioned. I think that probably they'll have a special session. I think they're shooting for a special session sometime in November, in which this is going to be presented. I spoke personally to Jason Shope today. I haven't been able to speak to Bill Montford, but they're certainly supporting it 100%. And as a community, and as men that govern this community, I'm asking for your support. I've seen this board give proclamations and letters for everything under the sun. And if you're not going to support this, I would also like you to acknowledge that as well. This is very important to law enforcement. It's very important to our community, especially if you're a business owner and you worry about damage to it. This in my opinion, is the best thing that would try to prohibit or preclude somebody from attacking one of these things we just mentioned. This is very dear to my heart, and I've never seen a legislation like this before, and I think it's very much needed. And I think this community, like all the other communities in the state of Florida, will be supporting this. I understand right now this the House and the Senate this is going to be apparently what they're proposing is almost a unanimous vote. But even so, I think our community would like to see us presenting this or representing that. I'm gonna set a copy out here. I know that we've got the COVID-19 thing going on. Y'all can let that quarantine for a day or two before you pick it up. But I want y'all to see it. I'm sorry. I promise you that I'm I'm not gonna ask you how you should respond to that, but I would love to see you respond at some point in the future in an affirmative. This is very important to our guys.
I think at this time, it would be very much appropriate for the board to, for the board, if it were agreeable to, have a letter of support sent to the governor and to Senator Montford and Representative Stokes. And or a proclamation, whatever we need to be. I think we should.
Would you like a proclamation or just a letter?
Well, I told the chairman I wasn't going to request the determination on that, but either one. I think a letter would be certainly effective to for the representative and our senator, so they could see that this community supports this, and they would feel more. I think they already feel comfortable, but any support, direct support like that in the formula, I think that would be wonderful. I don't think the proclamation, just, again, me talking, but certainly a letter would be appropriate. Jason Shope, I told him that I was going to be presenting this to you guys in just a few minutes. I just got on the phone with him, and he was very much would appreciate that, is what he just said. And again, I haven't talked to Senator Montford yet, but I'm going to. And Reggie Alexander, he would very much appreciate it as well.
You certainly have my support, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I'd make a motion that we do,
Well, I think we can do that by consent.
Okay, that's fine. We're fine.
I think, was that consensus of that?
Absolutely. Okay.
County manager to send a letter to Senator Montford and Representative Stokes and whomever else that you think we need to.
No, that would be very sufficient for me, for sure.
Okay.
I just appreciate y'all's support. And again, I wanted to thank Lonnie in person and in public for taking care of our road out there. Thank y'all. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff. We'll get that letter in the mail. Moving to our consent agenda. Do we have any questions or discussion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0. This time, we're going to move over to new business. We have a public hearing that we have to hear, and I'm going to call Mr. Dean up. This is a final hearing on the approval of resolution 20-09-23B for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
As we said before, we had the first public hearing during our last meeting, and this meeting here is to present the draft grant for the Community Development Block Grant. And I'd like to emphasize that at this point, this grant is still in draft form. The final grant is due on Monday, October the 5th, which is roughly 2 weeks away. So there's There's some additional documents that I need to have the chairman to sign, that I need to get from Cheryl Lynn, as well as some applications from the Citizens Advisory Task Force. And so some tightening up that I needed to do. But in order for the board to be able to have the rudiments of what the grant was, that's what I presented to you in your package. And the main part of that actually is the funding mechanism. So that's what the Department of Economic Opportunity will be taking a look at when they evaluate the application. And even then, they will be doing a site visit where they'll spend the better part of a day or two here. And then at that point, there's things that we also need to modify or to rectify, if you will. At that time, they will go over that with us. And it's very similar to what they did down in Greenville when I built the community center. So just a kind of a FYI to that. The Citizen Advisory Task Force, when we met before the last meeting, they voted 2-1 to move forward with the application. There was one dissent, a lady who thought that we were moving a little fast on the process, but this is as I told you before, this is normally a 6-month process that I was trying to condense down into 6 or 7 weeks. So we right now, we are in a very strong position from just looking at the scores in previous years, and that's what I'm basing it off of. Every year is different, but we look in a pretty strong position to look forward to the housing here. So, I recommend that this board move forward with that grant application for me to submit on your behalf on October the 5th. So, I think went over the grant activities. If there's any questions from the board, I can address that on this little white paper, if you will, that you have. I kind of tried to memorialize the local match. This would be something that the board would not have to pay any of your personal money, if you will, from the county, because we can use matching funds from SHIP. We could even go as far as to asking SHIP, doing their rehabilitation program, to add more homes to this. And the number of homes is going to largely be dependent on how the bids come back and the economy is, where the different parts, whether steel or so forth. But we're at least looking at, anywhere from 5 to 7 homes. So, we can feel real good about that. So, if you look on that white paper, that pretty much, tells you the objective of the program, which is to update some of the low to moderate range housing that are in the unincorporated areas for people who are very indigent and who need to have updated housing. You see the budget down there where basically it gives you a breakdown of what we're looking at, what individuals will be paid when they move out of their homes. But again, that part of it is kind of more a little bit further down to the process, and I'll be talking to you individually as well as coming before the board and the community and kind of explaining that once DEO calculates the raw scores as well as the collective scores. So that's it from my end that I think I'm covering. Maybe skipping over something, but if there's any questions, I can address those at this time.
I think before we go, I'm going to open it to the public for any public comments, and then I'll come back to the board. Do we have any public comments or questions at this time?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay, please state your name, please, ma'am.
Okay, this is Lori Korn, and
Okay.
I serve
Lori
on
Korn.
the...
You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I serve on the Citizen Advisory Task Force and was in attendance at the meeting. I know I reviewed the application packet that Mr. Dean included in the board's materials. The minutes of the task force meeting indicate it was a unanimous vote, although I know Mr. Dean just mentioned that the vote was 2-1. So I would request that those minutes be revised to accurately reflect the vote. I also noticed when we talked about it in the task force meeting and as well at the previous public hearing, the discussion was always 5 to 7 homes, but several places throughout the application packet, it mentions up to 11 homes, and on other pages it says at least 11 homes. So I was wondering, is it 5 to 7 homes or is it at least 11 homes? And then I was also concerned that the minutes of this current second public hearing were included in the package in advance when the meeting hadn't even taken place. I understand it may be, you know, a placeholder, but perhaps it should have said draft or not have been included. I was concerned that the minutes were presented as a foregone conclusion before the meeting had even taken place. And that are the only comments and concerns that I had.
Lori, I'm going to allow Mr. Dean to address those 2 items, please, ma'am. Dean?
Okay, when we look at the homes, as I mentioned to you in the last meeting, I'm basing every year, Ms. Korn, when DEO receives these grants, every year is different, all the way down to how many folks get funded. Some years, you know, they take the top 10%. Some years there's been where the whole batch has gotten funded. Those things are fluid. And so particularly given the COVID environment, I was trying to make a good guesstimate, if you will. My estimate is that, as I mentioned to you last time, that the homes are going to roughly go anywhere from, a new home is going to go from anywhere from $75,000 to $125,000. With that, if you look under the program where we're looking at basically $750,000 minus the administration and minus the money that is going to be given to the residents to do relocation while their homes are being built. You know, we're roughly looking at $600,000 and some thousand. So at that estimate, you're probably looking at 5 to 7 homes. Again, if DOE decides, because sometimes they have extra money and extra resources, if they allocate those extra monies or resources, our amount of money could very well go up. The main thing that I would comment on is that, again, this was a draft application. We're nearly 2 weeks basically from my submission, so this gave you a general idea of the flavor or the flow. There wasn't any previous grant here for the last 5 years to use as a template, so all of this is something, like I said again, I wanted to make sure that I got you something in your packets. And so maybe I apologize for putting a placeholder minutes, if that offended anybody, whether it's the board member or the public. But that was just a placeholder so we can move forward in the grant. And those edits that you're talking about, ma'am, we were going to start going through a comprehensive review and tightening up all of that over the next week. So I'm going to actually try to submit the grant ahead of time. But usually these types of grants, you're beating the midnight oil until the final day to try to get it submitted. So, Ms. Horn, thank you for bringing those edits to my attention. They're duly noted, and I appreciate you for having sat on that committee. Again, in an ideal scene, Ms. Korn, we would have been working on this sometime in the spring, moving into the summer. But given the timeline in which I was brought on, I want to make sure that Madison County gets its fair share of resources. And for the last several years, we haven't been getting our fair share. And so it's time for us to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Lori, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more public comments?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Benjamin White, 766 Southeast Roller Coaster Hill.
Yes, sir. You have
I'll go ahead. Cut me off if you can't hear me.
yes, sir. I hear you.
I've been trying to follow this whole community development grant process since the beginning, and a little confused, and maybe we are moving a bit too fast. I know we're at the end of the race, so, but you know, it started out with the Ag Center, and then we're going to do a splash park. Then the city and the county were going to flip-flop those. Neither of those came to fruition. So all of a sudden we ended up with this 5 to 7 homes. And then now it's 11. Now it's back to 5 to 7. I appreciate Mr. Dean trying to explain that. I was also concerned about the minutes of the meeting already being, tonight's meeting already being in the packet. One other concern I have is $112,500 that are the administrative fees. Says about 60% of those go to the housing rehabilitation specialist. That's $67,500. Who will that be? And also, the other 40% will be $45,000, and that goes to the regular consultant administrative activities. That $45,000, that the $45,000 the county is actually paying Mr. Dean to be the grant consultant, or will he receive that $45,000 in addition to the $45,000 he's already receiving from the county? Thank you.
I'll allow Mr. respond to that.
Sir, thank you for those questions. Those are very valid questions. In reference to the Ag Center and Splash Pad, the city of Madison, I call it doing a little Jedi mind tricks, but the city of Madison, the way that it works for these grants, you have to apply for them in your jurisdiction, if you will. And our jurisdiction is in the unincorporated areas. The Ag Center is actually in the city of Madison. And so in order to have made that project work, the city of Madison would have had to take that project on. And what I had created was I asked if the city would take that project on, and then we would take on the project that they were looking at, which was a splash pad, and then put that in the unincorporated area. That didn't work because their board had a more pressing water sewer issue that they wanted, so that scrapped that process. But it didn't scrap the Ag Center process. I have talked with the Department of Agriculture, the gentleman who heads up the Department of Administration, and there's a separate pot of money, let's call it a grant/appropriation, through the Department of Agriculture that we will put in sometime at the very last part of the year to pursue to bring the Ag Center up to date. So that process is not lost because we didn't pursue it in the CDBG. We're just going to do it through the regular appropriation grant process that's being trickled down through the Department of Agriculture. As far as the splash pad is concerned, that's something that we will have to look at in the future, just simply because, again, the city of Madison decided to go in a different direction. As far as the minutes, I will reiterate the point that I made to Ms. Korn. That probably was a mistake on my behalf. I maybe just should have put one sheet of paper and put we'll pursue later, but then I thought I would ask more questions. I thought by giving you a template of what you were looking at, you'll have a better idea of what was going to be submitted on your behalf. As it relates to the team that will actually do the administration of the process, that is a separate process that will probably come under a bidding process. And so at that point, you'll have a team that you have a housing specialist, so basically a construction worker, if you will, that will oversee that. That money will come out of the grant. That was a question that you had for me the last period. And then that $45,000 is usually customary to the grant. You usually see it, somewhere in the 8th percentile range, and so that's where that $45,000 will roughly come. So we haven't gotten to that process yet. Again, this was about trying to get the grant application submitted on the 5th, and then you move forward. And by the way, just so you know, if you didn't do it now, you basically are going to have to wait for another whole year. And then we've already gone over 5 years without getting our fair share. And there's been communities, Greenville, we pushed that thing through, and I had to have architect work done on that, and we pushed that thing through in about 6 weeks. So I would say to the board, we need to get our fair share.
Mr. Watts, does that answer your questions?
Partially, I'm not real sure where the $45,000 is going, but I guess we'll get that to the end. And I realize that the applications need to be in by October 1st. And I appreciate Mr. Dean explaining that to the radio or listening audience. I was aware of all what he told already, but thank you for your time.
The 45,000, I think that's one Mr. Watts is still concerned about where that money will actually be going.
That'll be going to the grant administrator, and that the board decides on, to oversee that project. And so,
Do we have any more comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll open this up to the board. Does the board have any comments or discussion?
Mr. Chair, yeah, and actually I had called, Sherilyn earlier today and had questions about pretty much the same questions that Ms. Corn just asked. Except for on page 110, Dean, on our first public hearing minutes, it said there was no comments from the public. Well, I guess that kind of way you term it, but I know that myself and Commissioner Moore had a few questions about the process and how many houses we're going to be. It's actually, we approved them in our minutes tonight. But you might want to refer back to that and adjust those minutes to reflect, some of the questions that were from the public on that. And I guess my next question would be, are we approving this draft tonight, or what's going to be the process for approving it?
I think what you're doing is you're approving the resolution on page 90.
Okay.
And that resolution says that you're authorizing the chair and the county manager and vice chair to execute whatever is necessary to submit the grant application. The application, like Mr. Dean says, has to be in by the 5th. So you're pulling the trigger and saying, Mr. Dean, submit what needs to be submitted in order to apply for the grant. And then if we don't get awarded the grant, then it doesn't matter. If we do get awarded the grant, and that's when it comes back and you have to take the further steps of getting somebody to administer the grant.
So would the task force be a part of that final review, or is that just with you and Sherilyn?
no, the task force won't be, the task force did their job when they made the recommendation, or I'm telling you, they made the recommendation to pursue this. The task force will potentially get picked back up when the grant is received to, the board designates them to look over some applications. I have some recommendations. We already have a process, or the county already has a process in place through SHIP. And so to be able to review that, but then that's some of the things that potentially we could take a look at if there's any, I have not reviewed all of their regulations and how that shapes out. Again, I would do that once I'm given preliminary provision from DEO that we received the grant. When the grant goes in on the 5th, Chief, you will probably be looking at a month to 6 weeks, and then DEO on their website, they'll list what they call the raw scores. So they'll take all the scores from the grant that you saw in there, the breakdown of the numbers, and they'll post that. So you'll have a general idea where you stand at with the community at that time. Then they'll go back, and once they start to do their own internal review, then they'll go back and say, okay, well, we won't have this with the housing grant, but like in Greenville, when we did the neighborhood grant, where we had to go do door-to-door surveys, and they go and they review all of those and make sure that came in. And then they say, okay, well, you got this amount of points. Then at that point, you begin and know that you've been preliminarily awarded. They'll send you an award letter at that time. This is all of the various steps that will occur over the next 6 months before any reward is actually being awarded. So this right here is just these first steps that you're seeing are just the first steps in a very detailed process to get moving. So that's where we're at.
But Mr. Chairman, if this board is the one that decides on the administrator, it comes back to this board.
Correct.
That decision is not made by your county manager, Mr.
That's another process.
Yeah.
And I'll be sharing, so there's no conflict, I'll be sharing with Cheryl Lynn who she can contact to understand how to go about doing that process once we move forward here. And I think I may have mentioned that already.
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Mr. Dean, this is housing rehab, correct?
Correct.
And there are some other categories, community revitalization, economic development, neighborhood revitalization. And this particular one is gonna be 30 months to close out, is that my understanding?
No, it just depends on, I mean, there's a lot of different variables that are in play here.
Okay.
I'll, not to convolute the process, but I'll give you an example. You know, the time from deciding who's gonna get the homes, them relocating, finding and relocating housing, to
Contractors
to them deciding, you know, whether they want to go with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with no front porch. There's a, you know, making sure that all of the codes are being met. So it's I mean, you're talking about housing here, so that is the bottom line of getting through this process. Ideal scene is the word that I always use. Ideal scene that we get through this, you know, in no longer than 18 months.
Okay. One other question. While we're working through this one, this won't hinder us from having another grant going on at the same time.
What, with CDBG?
Right.
Yes. You mean like coming back next year and applying for another CDBG?
This one will not be closed out. Will that hinder us from opening up another grant?
Not another grant, another CDBG grant under this line.
Okay, so, economic development, we could do something like that.
Yes, that's another line. That's a CDBG ED.
Okay.
That's another grant. So if we had a grant that we was working on under that pretense, we could move forward with it.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions from the board?
Motion to approve this resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Martin to approve the. Second by Commissioner Moore. Any discussion?
Just that they'll be, of course, Cheryl, you'll be involved in the final review of application and all.
All in favor? All opposed? Then it goes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Did that approve was that for the resolution number?
Resolution on page 90, what I understood.
Okay. Did I get the policies and all of that, Shirley? Was that encompass everything that we need to? Yeah.
Yeah, the resolution says that they can execute all of that.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're going to move back up. We're going to jump on it real quickly on our unfinished business. We're going to call Ms. Lee Basper. Are you online?
Commissioner, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Lee, you have the floor.
Just a brief update. We continue to respond to any PPE needs. Those have significantly dwindled as the state now is pretty much expecting those needs to be a norm for most agencies. So those are significantly less. Our focus now is just being of assistance for the CARES money and keeping the county manager up to date for all of the information that flows through from the Division of Emergency Management on our daily calls. We continue to monitor the tropics as well and are thankful that we haven't had any impact thus far.
Thank you, Lee. Would it be your recommendation that we continue the emergency declaration at this time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments of Ms. Basper by the board? Hearing none, Ms. Albritton, are you online with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, commissioners and chairman.
Good evening.
Okay, I want to give a brief report tonight, and let's look at our epidemic trends for Madison County. The resident cases, we have a total of 993. For non-Floridian residents, we have 16 cases, and that totals 1,009 cases for Madison County. Looking at our 14-day trend since September 9th, we've seen a 8.4 increase in cases. This equates to 78 new cases over the last 14 days. This is a decrease from our last report where we had 91 cases, so we're moving in the right direction. Looking at our 7-day trend, it indicates we're beginning to stabilize since September 16th. Madison County has 16 new cases, of which 50% are associated with long-term care or correctional facilities. When we look at our total caseload or our total cases, 33% of our cases are associated with long-term care or correctional institutes. However, most of our cases are outside of these particular facilities, and they are from close contacts with a positive and are mainly occurring from being in the same household with a positive individual. Looking at our case demographics, they've remained stable or about the same. 45% of our positive cases are men and 55% are women. Our median age runs around 41. When we look at our outcomes for Madison County, we've had 5% of all of our cases that have been hospitalized, and that figure runs around 52, and then 2% of all of our cases we've experienced deaths in. We've had 18 deaths since the beginning of COVID. Our 2 of our deaths have occurred in the age category of 45 to 64, and the remaining 16 have been in the 65 years and older age category. When we look at our testing data for Madison, we've tested over 6,055 residents. We have had an overall positivity rate of 16.7, which is a little high. However, when you take into consideration the long-term care in the correctional institutes, that figure would be much lower. When we look at our positivity rate for yesterday, it was actually in a much better place, and it was 2.6, which further indicates that we're stabilizing. The health department continues to do community testing, and tomorrow we will be in Monticello and Madison. In Monticello, we'll be from 8 to 11 a.m., and we'll be at the R.J. Baylor Library, which is the public library in Monticello. And then from 1 to 4 p.m., we'll be at the Happy Hayes Park. And for anyone interested in getting a test, please feel free to come out. This is the oral swab. It's not the nasal swab. So it's a little bit easier to endure. I do want to ask that all citizens remain vigilant in wearing their mask and social distancing when around others. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Is any
You're welcome.
comments or questions of Ms. Albritton? Kim, thank you, and Lee, for what you and your staff are doing. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We entertain a motion motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Martin, to extend the emergency declaration. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Here's 5-0, Billy. All right, we're going to move now to our Public Works Department. Public Works number 1, this is a discussion regarding Northeast Dandelion Street. Got Commissioner Kelly's on this, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, could you ask if Ms. Lundell is online? I don't see her in the audience.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Judy, would you like, I know you would call me, you want to address the board, please?
Yes, the board should have received an email from me with some pictures. Did y'all receive that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's a lot of issues going on here. First of all, I don't like to complain, and so I apologize, but this is just a dangerous road hazard. I know that this has aggravated some of the farmers on our road, and I understand that, and I do feel their pain. And that is a separate issue from the safety that's for the Madison citizens. You can see on there, and the pictures are not really good, but you cannot see the rebars, the fence post, and the trash that is alongside that road until you've already made that turn. And, you know, our roads are wonderful for dirt bikes and stuff. And the way the rebars are, if the dirt bike hits one of those fence posts, they're going to land on a rebar. I'm not an alarmist, but I'm a realist. There's going to be property damage and someone's going to get hurt on that corner. All that being said, I know y'all have surveyed it, and her fence is on the survey line. And if that's not correct, I'm all about her or the property owner, whoever it is, I'm really not sure, move the fence out to where it needs to be instead of because a fence you can see, a post you cannot see at night. So if the fence needs to be moved, if the property owner wants to move the fence, that's fine. And if the road is truly on the other side, that's fine as well. But as a citizen, we just can't leave fence posts, metal ones, singly by themselves, not marked, with rebars all along that road. It's just not safe. So my question to the county commissioners is, please either move the road over and put those little reflective flappy tabs that I see all over everywhere else, if that's where the property line should be, or just take the stuff down. And it really doesn't matter which, but the stuff needs to be out of the road for safety. Again, I have no personal interest in anything other than the safety of citizens. And if that's truly, if she's got those rebars and those fence posts are on the property line, then we should have the property owner move the fence out there and road widen on the other side. And if that doesn't happen, at the very least, reflective posts put there, so at night when you come around that corner, you can see it. Now, that's the end of my request. I would just like to be heard, and thank you for hearing me, and thank you for looking. And if you need more information, I would suggest driving down that road because it's a lot clearer than the pictures.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lindell.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak to this issue?
Yes, I would.
Please state your name and.
My name is Tyler Shadrick. I own 1124 Northeast Dandelion Street. I'm the adjacent property owner to the owner that we're having issues with. I am one of the farmers that Miss Judy talked about. I personally don't have an issue with her land versus the county land or whatever. I'm the same as Miss Judy. I don't mind where the land is. I just mind that the road is not wide enough. In April, I'll be sending trucks through that road that are 53-foot long semi trucks. And I know it's a dirt road and I know that there's issues, but it's a county maintained road. And there's no way that I'll be able to get a 53-foot semi trailer through that road as the way it is right now. So that means I have to come all the way around Dusty Miller and all the way back up, which is probably 4 or 5 miles out of my way, plus more bumpy dirt road when I'm hauling valuable, commodities. So I just petitioned the board to try to get something accomplished with the landowner and to widen the road. And it's not just in front of her property. I mean, you guys have seen the pictures that Miss Lindell sent you. And you can clearly see that her mailbox is 3 or 4 feet in front of her fence. It's not lined up to her fence. And what you can't see is what Miss Judy is talking about. All the trash and the pieces of metal and the boards and things that could cause hazards to tires, and not only tires, but human lives. And so I know that it's probably not going to be easy, but you got to understand that when it comes to safety, nobody's going to take that lightly. And in my opinion, it's not going to be the landowner that gets sued. It's going to be the county. And I don't want that to happen either, because that's more of tax money that is going away from us that we could use. So anything that you guys could do to help, I ask, invite all of you to come out and see it for yourself. We'd be more than glad to give you a tour and let you see what's going on. It wouldn't be hard. Just come down there one time and you'll see that it's very tight. There's no way that 2 cars can pass. So, but with that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shadrick. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the board on this issue?
Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard her say something about that, corner post there, and, if a reflective or something was on that, it's not really my fault, but I didn't put the cornerstone there, and, I guess that's something that somebody else would have to do, not me. But anyway, as far as, the road, I'm not moving my road nowhere. Cause like I said before, when we came up here and we discussed this already, the road was there all the time. These people just moved in here. So why you wanna worry about me moving my road to accommodate you? And as I feel today, my answer is no, I'm not moving my road. I'm not moving my mailbox. I'm not moving anything. The land was mine in the beginning. I sold it to the Harris. And the Harris did whatever they did. That's how they came into the land. Now it's not suing you because you decide to open up your business. Now you want me to accommodate for you for what you're doing. That's your problem. That's your business. I got nothing to do with what you do with the land. That's not my problem. So like we said before, that has not been just a public road. That's been a tractor road, a road we use for farming. That's how the road come about between the properties. So that's why all the cars and stuff are on the road. It wasn't no straight through road for no public use. From the beginning, years ago. It always been this way for years. And anybody in the community can tell you this. Even the post office workers say the same thing, they can come up here and they can say the same thing, that the road has always for years been that way. Ever since they've been running mail up and down the road has always been the same. So it's not like we moved the road or we changed anything. That's just the road, where the road always have been. And if it's our property, we paying taxes on our property, then why should we have to move anything dealing with our property? So we're not understanding where all of this is coming from. The tractors are coming through the road just fine. CJ them have been bringing combines. They've been coming through, and I have video, not with me, but I have video where tractor trailers have been coming through the property for years with no problem. Our video, they shoot around the corner wide open with no problem. So why is there saying a problem with people getting through, and we don't understand it? I guess because it's not wide as they want it to be. But when you're dealing with other people's property, you can't just go and say, well, I want that move, I want that move, I want that move. It's not your decision because it don't belong to you. You accommodate your own property the way you need it for your use, but you can't tell anybody with their own property the way it has been for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You can't come and tell them, I want this done to your property. That's not fair to us at all. Now, the mailbox is out there, yes, but with the mailbox on that road is not the only mailbox that's out beside the road, because when you first come in off of the highway, other people have mailboxes out beside their road. And the reason why the mailbox is out there is because alongside our fence, the postal workers was driving and it was killing the grass. We would like to have nice property just like anybody else would like to have nice property. So we moved the mailbox out a little further so they wouldn't have to just keep driving along the grass, killing the grass. That's the only reason why the mailbox was moved out there. Okay, now the little metal green post that's out there, that's still on our property. The reason why they was put there is because nasty people, they saw me out there trying to get the grass to grow, and what they would do with their vehicles, they would come and drive on it and stay on it to try to kill it anyway, just because they see we're trying to do something productive. That's how nasty these people are down this road.
You're at 4 minutes. You got 1 minute.
Okay. We have people that come when it rains just to be nasty, and they come and they sit with their pickup truck right in front of the property, and they dig holes. I had to go out and yell at someone one day and tell them to get gone before I call the cops, because they come out and they do stuff, nasty stuff, just to be nasty because they can't get their way. Now, we have been here, and we have been basically almost the only people that live down this road almost for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now people are starting to come in, and they're wanting it done their way. But that's not fair to us because we have to live down this road. We have to deal with this. There's nothing wrong with going in the other way from the highway. What's wrong with it?
Okay, you're at your 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any more comments on Dandelion? Do we have any commissioner comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I've been just talking with them. I've talked with Ms. Lundell and Ms. Shadrick on numerous occasions. occasions. It is a county-maintained road, and yes, it does probably go through their property. And I appreciate what they say about being there for many years. However, we've got two businesses, and apparently, and I know in Ms. Blount's case, he's got delivery trucks that come from other areas that when they get the GIS map, it brings them in off of 145, not coming in off of Dusty Miller. I don't have a magic wand. I don't know what right now I'm at the board's market, but I think we've got to do something. We've got a serious situation there, and I think Ms. Lundell pointed out somebody's going to get hurt there, I'm afraid. And I think, and I'm welcome Mr. Lonnie to come. You can cut him words of wisdom. I'm all here. No, I was afraid you were going to do that.
I do have a question. Last time we were in the meeting, didn't we? Correct me. I think you own some property across the road. Am I correct on that?
Let's get across the road.
Would that be a solution to where, maybe we could to get a little bit more room, and that way it would allow you to continue to keep your yard and your area, if we could shift the road over to, I guess, to the north? Would that be
are you guys interested in buying what's across there?
I'm sorry?
Is the county interested in buying what's across the road that we own?
Madam, I don't think so. Okay. I'm just trying to come up with a good solution for everybody, for good neighbor relations.
Yeah.
Because, it is a county-maintained road, and we did do a county maintenance map. And I'm trying to work out for all parties.
Ms. Brown, I appreciate what your point is, and I really do. But you also, from the other standpoint, you have to realize it is a county-maintained road, which means it is open to the public for anyone in the county technically to.
Well, when did it actually become county-maintained road? Because before it was private road, because my granddad created the road, it was private road. So who signed, or how did it become public funds again?
I would have to refer to Mr. Thigpen on that one. I'm not sure. Do you, Ms. Thigpen, do you have any idea when we made that a public road?
It was county maintained when I took over the road department. I couldn't tell you what date it was.
Well, I know it's county maintained road. I don't know at what point, but it is a county maintained road. It is not a private road. And I think that's one of the issues that we've got to have understand and resolve here.
So can we find out that, and if we need to, we'll make it whatever we need to.
Well, it's been a public road for many years. Mr. Thigpen's been on the road department for many years, and it was a county road then.
And we've been on the property for over 200 and something years.
Understand that?
Where it is become.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves, could you give us any light on public versus private roads and how that evolves into county maintained, please?
Yes, sir. Under Florida law, once the county's been maintaining the road in excess of 7 years, it vests in the county. And so it doesn't, you don't have to go back that far, as long as the county's been maintaining it that long. And Lonnie's been here, how long now, 20 years?
I've been in the county 30 years.
Yeah.
I've been in the road department almost 11.
So, I mean, it's definitely in 7 years it's come and gone. One thing I maybe would suggest, though, Mr. Chairman, what we were talking about is, rather than widening the road, maybe what you could do is just shift the road to the north. And then that way, what you lost on one side, you gain on the other. So there wouldn't be any net loss of acreage, and you actually might make it better, because what's like, you get more right there by your house, between your house and the road.
The last time we were here.
Yeah.
It's the same amount that's on the other side of the road, could be maintained.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, just keep it just that wide, but move the whole thing over, so every foot you lost over here, you gain on that.
That's not a problem, that's
So
not
that-
even better, I mean.
And that might be a point you could let, Lonnie and Steve Bill go out and look at it, see if they can do a plan.
Well, I offered that already.
Well, that last meeting, you had offered that, and that's why I brought it back up, and maybe this would be a solution.
If that would work,
I mean, as long as we don't lose anything.
Well, this would actually, if we can, I don't know how much property you own on the north side of the road,
Not a whole lot.
but if we shift over, then it makes you get all of your property together, so you don't have a little, so it's a win-win for everyone if that is possible.
And that's not something you really agree to today, but they can look at the plan and bring it back, show you how it draws out, and you have to look at it and see.
Is that's agreeable? Do we need a motion to have Lonnie and, Bill look at it and see about the possibility of shifting the road over, Lonnie?
If we need that, I'm also move.
Well, hold on, Lonnie,
One thing I would suggest is to get permission to establish the property line between her and the landowner,
Sure.
where we know what we're dealing with, whether it's 1 foot or 50 feet.
Sure, I understand. And then come back to us.
And how much would you actually have to shift it to get past the things that people are thinking are dangerous? I mean, we're talking about 10 feet, or we're talking about 5 feet, what are we talking about?
Depends on what kind of width you want to maintain in the road.
I mean, kept the same length.
Well, it's gonna need, actually be wider, because it needs to be wider right there, doesn't it, Lonnie? Because it did more wider like the rest of the road, because right through there it's pretty narrow. And
The road varies.
yeah, it varies, that's what I mean. And we've got a situation where we've got 2 businesses now that are bringing trucks in and out of there, that are mostly truckloads, and we need something at least as wide as what the rest of the road is, if not, so 2 vehicles can pass together, I guess.
But just that one area that you're talking about, when you go down further, like going out to 145,
Yeah.
it's narrower there.
You're right, yeah, well,
There areas, why it's hard on my area, in front of my house. It's just a target towards us, that's the way we feel that we're being comfortable. Because you're not looking at no other land owners, you're not looking at stars and everything else around my property only, nobody else is on that road. Blue and white stars all around our property. And we will be glad to remove it, because make it look like we're doing something wrong.
Let's let Lonnie look at it and bring something back. We don't need that for a motion, it's county road. I mean, we can instruct them to go out there and look at that.
Yeah, we
Bring
can,
it back,
sure.
I think, but maybe Lonnie, you wanting to be able to verify where the property line is between the.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
There's not on both sides.
Can we do that without a motion, or do we need for Lonnie to establish the property line on the north side between the landowners?
Yeah, I think I would do that by consensus.
Yeah, let's do that.
That suit everyone? Okay? All right. Moving on, the next item, we're going to, we have someone here, we want to move down to number 5. This is Commissioner Kelly as well. This is just talking about the Locust Grove community.
Commissioners, you got, excuse me. You got a, email from, Juan Bettina. We received a petition, as such from all the homeowners there, all but 2 of the homeowners in Locust Grove have requested speed bumps. They're having quite a bit of problem with, trucks particularly going through there at a higher rate of speed. There are children playing there on both College and Biltmore. And, it does have through access, of course, as you know, in Locust Grove, but, like the delivery trucks, FedEx, and UPS, to give an example. And Ms. Tammy Hightower is here to speak on behalf, I think, for the Neighborhood Association. Tammy, if you'd like to come up and address the board.
Thank you. Our neighborhood, we have 20 homes. When I first moved out there in 95, we had no children out there. Now, we've got lots of children, and out of those 20 homes, we've probably got, with children and grandchildren, at least 20 children to play out there. I don't like speed bumps. I hate speed bumps, but I don't want to see our children get injured. And what we've done, we have a neighborhood Facebook page. Multiple times, one has sent out messages, please slow down, please slow down. We've put letters in the mailboxes, please ask your family and your visitors to slow down. Juan's grandson has asked the UPS man twice, please slow down. By the time they get to my end, which is closer to 145, a speed limit of 15 has turned into 50 miles an hour coming down that hill. So our fear is we don't want to the old saying, we don't wanna wait till somebody gets killed at the intersection and set up a stop sign. We don't know what else to do. We've tried asking, and one of the families that does not want the speed bumps, which I respect, they said we all should be responsible and take responsibility for ourselves, which I agree. But we need to do something to protect our children so they don't get hurt playing. One even put up a sign that says, slow down, something about, slow down, this is not a racetrack. But we've tried everything, and that's why we're asking for speed bumps, and if speed bumps aren't approved, then any suggestions that you can give us to help protect those children that are playing there, we would greatly appreciate.
Chair,
Yes.
is there a certain time of day when the traffic speeds by faster than?
During the summer, the kids are out all the time, but most of the time it's the delivery trucks, and in the afternoon and in the evening.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Tim, of course, you've been out to Yellow Pines, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So the types of speed bumps that are out there would probably be
That'd be
sufficient.
fun. That'd be great.
Because these are the type of speed bumps that don't have like the abrupt, like you've got to roll over it at like 1 or 2 miles an hour. If you go again, these are the, I forget what, Lonnie, the term they use for humps, not bumps.
Speed humps, not really.
We've been through this before.
10 to 15, 10 mile an hour bumps.
Yeah, those are great.
They're just wider and got more of a gradual rise and fall than it would be the abrupt.
Right. Nothing to throw your car out on behind it.
Any more discussion? I received, I don't have it in front of me, I don't know if you guys received a letter from Mr. Bettino this afternoon by email.
I got this, Sherilyn forwarded me.
The one that
other day,
Cheryl
not
forwarded,
today.
that had all the names, I think,
Okay.
voted yes and no.
I got that.
I don't remember getting one this afternoon, but it would be my motion if we do put speed bumps in there. I think it is, we definitely, like Tammy said, there's an awful lot of children in there, playing, and, we've got to do something. We did it in Yellow Pine. I think we've got no choice but to try to accommodate this situation.
I second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion?
Just the fact that we've done our process for investigation and then we got the petition and up for the public that support it, so.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I just got one question for clarity's sake. Are you talking about
Oh.
2/20/17? How many?
Yeah, we need
Make sure.
maybe, that would be, something.
Lonnie
Be
can
sure,
answer
are y'all
that.
directing him to do what's necessary or whatever? I just want to make sure.
If Steve and Lonnie can look at it.
would you, amend your motion to allow Lonnie to do whatever
Absolutely. I'm
he
so
and
amended, yeah.
Steve determined needed?
And I would include it to say, if necessary, College and Biltmore. I know Biltmore's a longer one, but College is not very long, but there's a problem there too, apparently.
There it is.
So, any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0.
Thank y'all very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay,
Thank you.
Now we're going back up to number 2, and, this is gonna be Mr. Clay Blair. This is going to be review and possible approval of quotes for the baler for solid waste and recycling.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As y'all know, I usually bring some of the team along there with me on that. Mark helped me tremendously with a lot of this, and, make it as short as we possibly can on that. We sent out our quotes and, requested bids stuff on that one by emails, be in by September the 4th on 2020 by 5 p.m. We got our results in, and, all in all, as far as the baler's concerned on that one, various prices and stuff on that one, but the best information that we were looking for on that would come up with, actually equipment we're already using, Marathon equipment, balers and hydraulics that we use for our compactors. And, comes along out on that pathway, they're offering, saying their equipment should be able to meet 2,000-pound bales instead of 1,000-pound bales, which would be a great help to us. So, our recommendations are, with y'all's approval on that, if we could, to, go ahead and move on with, Marathon, which is through Marfan Supply out of Tallahassee, for the amount of $121,764.
Chairman, I believe we also, maybe as Commissioner Davis brought up, we would recoup that money by the money, saved on, about 2.5 years?
We're thinking 2.5 to
Yeah.
4.
Want to remind the board of that.
Yes, sir.
And you're free to award the bid to, not to, other than the low bid, but if you do award it other than the low bid, you need to, specifically put your motion why you're awarding it, other than the low bid. So, and I think that's because they had a special equipment, it was a 2,000 pound.
Right, it ended up on it, they're actually telling us they can give us a better bale than we were requesting, and we're already using that as their compactors for 10+ years, and had little to no complications out of it. Great service out of, Marquand Supply on that one from, generally, it doesn't matter night or day, we can call Tony Hartley over there, he's usually on the way, and the next day we got parts sent to us.
I understand that in your budget, you have money in your
We have a
solid waste
certain
budget.
amount of it on that one, we might be blessed and have all of it, we really don't know until it works a little further on in the year, but, we do understand that we can, should have sufficient funds in reserve on that one to help us out there.
Okay, that was my main concern, that we have the reserves to do that with. Any more, questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I move that we go with this recommendation.
And that motion would be because it was, superior and it met the same, equipment that we were using.
Right.
Is that sufficient? Yes, sir. Motion made by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Martin, to go with Marquand Supply for $121,764. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carries 5-0. Billy? Appreciate it. Moving up to number 3, this is, approval and possible, review and approval of possible quotes on the 30 cubic yard recycling containers.
All right, that turned out to be a kind of a stiff situation dealing with on that behalf there. We found out that we really and truly basically have only one long source provider on that one, for the system that's worked good for us for 20+ years on that one. As we consider what we do for the solid waste department of Madison County, it's kind of a mom and pop type situation that does turn out good on that one. By starting at the collection centers and stuff, that people are sorting materials, makes it easier on coming to the barn on that one, unloading and keeping it sorting as we process it. If we go into the single stream system, like most people do, the bigger places down south, Marquand Supply, they throw everything in one container on that. And of course, we've used inmate labor a lot in the past on that behalf there, but we don't know where that's going to go in the future. But they have to have a belt system on that conveyor system, which it goes on, it shakes and shimmies and sends things all kinds of ways that separates it, but still requires a lot of manpower. So we'd like to stay as simple as we've been for 20 years on that one, and stay with Midland containers on that one. That basically, like I said, they're the only ones that showed up with anything built like what we're looking for compartment-wise. We did have one person, I believe it was Comac out of South Florida, come up after the deadline on that behalf there, wanted to try to come up with some containers, but his was extremely more expensive, but also were only 4 compartments instead of.
And they were a single stream, one compartment, there was no dividers in it like what we have now.
And once again, you have reserve funds to suffice for this. Okay, any discussion from the board? On the containers, I will entertain a motion. If so moved. Motion made by Commissioner Kelly.
Second.
To accept this bid, second by Commissioner Moore from, Needham. Any discussion? That'll be for $90,200, correct? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0.
We'd like to say, remember the team, appreciate y'all.
We appreciate you guys. Moving to number 4, this is discussion regarding maintenance on private and or subdivision roads, and, this is brought up by Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, Well, as you know, in the past and during our budget processes, I know our attorney gave us a pretty good rundown of definitions and processes for the municipal services taxing unit and municipal services benefit units and pros and cons for each. And we also talked about handling these type of situations on a case-by-case basis. We never did really make a decision on what direction we wanted to go or whether we were going to do anything. So I asked it to be put back on the agenda for discussion. Also, during our meetings with our budget process, our meetings, Lonnie had given us information on what other counties were doing. And he actually emailed everybody a while back the MSBU application packet that currently Suwannee County does. And I contacted Sherilyn today and asked her if she would re-forward that email to all of you and print copies and provide for the meeting tonight. So I'm not really, one advocate one way or the other, which process we take, but I think we do need to. Just so you'll know, is what Suwannee County does. They do an MSBU benefit unit, and what they require is any subdivision in their county that wishes to become a part of a benefit unit, it requires a 10% signature from the residents that live in that subdivision to start the process. And then they go through the process. If the board approves the concept, then they direct their staff to go out and under step 3, staff considers options for projects, provides estimates and costs, including but not limited to engineering, construction, and finance costs. And they prepare a report back to the board. And then it'll actually would go back to the board, and then we would actually approve, or if the board approves it, then that subdivision would be part of that MSBU. And that's basically a process that those citizens make the decision on as far as what the cost would be and so forth. So, Mr. Attorney, if you have anything to add on that?
No, sir, I think that's a good process, and that, if you get 10% of the property owners, you start the process, and that justifies you expending some, because you're gonna have to expend some county money to figure all these things out. You've got to figure out how much it's going to cost to bring the roads up to standard, and then what are your costs going to be to finance it, what are your payback going to be over time, all that's going to take some doing. And that's brought back, and if once everybody sees the numbers, if 60% approve it.
I failed to mention that. Once it comes back, then 60% of the citizens in that subdivision would have to approve of the cost and the
Okay, the one thing you mentioned is signatures of 10% of the property owners, not the resident.
Yes.
It's the property owner.
The property owner.
What would be the problem, and I know we have one in, is it Pine Ridge, it seems to be one of the major problems.
Well, that's Blue Ridge Landing.
Okay, Blue Ridge, that's the one I'm thinking about.
Pine Ridge is
But what would be the problem with us picking out one subdivision and start this process that had come to us that wanted to, and do one subdivision and see if we can get the 10% and see if it follows through.
Well,
rather than trying to take the whole county as a whole,
Well, I think that we're not looking at the whole county as a whole. We're talking about individual subdivisions that want to research. And I know I've talked to some of my constituents that live in subdivisions that don't want us involved at all, and that's fine. But I do have some people that live in subdivisions that want the county's assistance. And just trying to come up with a method for making that happen if we can.
Mr. Chair, what I see on this is, what I've been able to read so far is informative, but somebody will have to be the point person to make this happen.
Well, I would think that somebody would have to contact our county office here, and once they had those signatures from the residents or the property owners in that subdivision, that would kind of trigger the process to come to us, do the work, and eventually work its way through this policy.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that was
saying.
kind of what I was trying to
Yeah.
say, was to go to the landowners in each subdivision and let them,
Yeah.
the initial thing, they would need to present us with petitions from 10% of the property.
Right.
And then we can start going forward.
We don't wanna start that legwork, I don't think.
Well, sure,
Look,
absolutely.
Well,
Yes,
we
sir.
would have to adopt what,
this.
if the process that we would, we would have to adopt the process we're gonna take for handling these situations. Whether we're gonna do it through an MSBU, or we're just gonna handle it on a case-by-case basis, where we get a petition from a group, Lonnie goes out and says it's gonna cost, I'm just saying, $5,000. And then you tell them, okay, it's gonna be this amount of money. If they pay it, then we go and do the work. But versus the MSBU. I mean, I don't know if that's another option. I think, Mr. Chair, I think Bill had it.
Let me ask you a quick question. Tommy, on, when you say 50% of the owners, is that 50% of the road frontage? Is it 50% of the individual owners? I know the ones I've been involved in, some guy could have 4 lots and be one owner. And we always end up going back to how much road frontage do you have? And that would be, you have to have 50% of the road frontage, what it works out to be. So some
Well,
guy could have 20
this
acres
agreement,
and
the way Swanee County does it is, in order for it to actually enact the MSBU in that subdivision, it would require 60% of the property owners to agree to it.
Well, what I'm saying is, you could have one guy with 100 acres, another guy with 5 acres, and he's got the same vote if you don't take the consideration of.
Well, if you had 10 owners, and 9 of them each have 1 acre, and the 10th one has 80 acres, the 9 can impose a tremendous
burden on the one.
On the one. I think though, just to remember, y'all really don't need their consent to do this. So I don't know that you have to cut the line quite that fine, as far as whether you're gonna have, lot owners or just owners in general. What I think you're gonna find is that once you go out and actually calculate the money, that's what's gonna separate the wheat from the chaff right there. Because if the amount of money's low enough, everybody's gonna want this, and if the amount of money's too high, nobody's gonna want this. And people are always shocked by how expensive roads are.
We went through this exercise with
Pine Ridge Range.
Yeah. And this was 20 years ago, and prices were a lot cheaper. And shoot, that ended real quick.
Well, and I respect that, but this was 20 years ago when we addressed this last. I think we need to.
Well, and I'm not saying don't go through it, but what I am saying is that's where you're gonna see where the interest is. When you figure out the dollar value, or the dollar figure you're talking about, that's where you're gonna see the real interest.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I think.
1 second, Rick. And I'll get back. One thing is, we need to either adopt this process or build our own process would be our first start.
I think you could, and then once y'all have adopted this, then you could go to like the Blue Ridge and say, hey, we've got this process, go get 10% of your property owners, we'll calculate out the numbers and start working.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Reed pointed out a good point. I've discussed this with people in Pine Ridge, which is my district, and I can tell you, just like he said, we pretty well shut it down when we started talking about the numbers, and the numbers have definitely gone higher today than they were 20 years ago. But I think Mr. Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of the neighborhoods that are coming to us are mainly coming to you because they're mostly on the river, the ones like Blue Ridge Landing, et cetera, that are out there. I don't see it as being something that's gonna be over the whole county. I think it may be later, but I think right now we're talking about the people on the river.
No, it's not. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but I mean.
And it's not necessarily my district.
Well, I'm giving that as an example, I guess. I didn't mean to, but that was where I had heard most of them coming from, because they're coming up here from South Florida and they're wishing they had better roads than they got now. Maybe they didn't know what they were buying when they bought it, but.
Has everyone had a chance to review this Suwannee County, document, or would you like to bring it back up at the next board meeting and give you time to review it? And I think that's our first process is to set up.
I'd like to have time to review it.
Yeah, same here. And one concern I have is there a time limit as to when all this has to be done? Because we know land's gonna change ownership in a subdivision, if a new owner is not aware of this, or will they be willing to go through the process?
Yeah, I think with the, I'm sorry.
You could probably do that like an easement, if I'm not correct. You make it go with the land. You just assign something and have it go with the land.
Well, and if you impose an MSBU, it's like we do at the special assessments for fire and solid waste are MSBU. It doesn't matter if the property changes hands, you still have to pay the special assessment.
Gotcha.
But, again, where I think you're gonna, where it's gonna either work or not work, is once you have the numbers, you're gonna bring it back, and then we gotta get 60% of the folks to approve it then. So if the time is not, there's not gonna be a whole lot of time there between having the number and them either approving it or not approving it.
Okay.
If it suits the board, let's, each one take this document home and we'll circle back to the next board meeting. And also, Mr. Attorney, if you would look over this and make sure, if anybody has any additions or deletions, then maybe, reach out to Tom. Is that okay for everyone?
I think, Mr. Chair, one other thing I want to mention, and we talked about this at the last meeting as well, and it has to do with, just like what Mr. Dean presented tonight, housing in our county. And there's a tremendous need for housing in our county. And if you'll remember, and I wasn't on this board when the policy changed to what subdivision requirements were. But I can tell you, if you go back and look, when those changes occurred, how many new subdivisions have been built? How much more additional housing have we built in this county for jobs and for growth and so forth? I know that I mentioned this last meeting. I think we need to look at those guidelines again as far as constructing new subdivisions, because when you're talking about $250,000 to $300,000 per running mile of paved road and subdivision, how many developers are we going to have coming here developing land and creating housing in our county?
Well, it's been a while since we've added in subdivisions, right?
Mr. I can speak to that, from what I used to do prior to this. There have been zero from the company I used, zero subdivisions from the time they changed that. And one of the things to point out too, and Mr. Davis is right on, if you're gonna develop a subdivision off a dirt road, your subdivision road has to be paved.
Yeah.
So you can't do a dirt road off a dirt road, even if it's to the county standard or better than county standard, it still can't be, it has to be a paved road. And there's some little things like that, and it does significantly increase the cost of your lot.
I mean, I got to look at this.
Revamp.
And when it was done, it was a good intention, because I mean, at that point in time, it's 2005, 6, 7, that area where we just had people coming up buying and I'm gonna say planting irresponsibly, maybe, you know what I mean? And maybe that was kind of a reaction to that. So, I mean, the intention was good, it's just now it maybe needs to be
readdressed, and I don't know what our process would be to
Real estate was pretty hot back then.
It was.
And it's hot again right now.
And it's very hot right now.
Yes, sir, the things that govern that are your subdivision regulations that are in your land development code. So probably if you wanted to start that process of looking at it, you'd refer it back to your zoning board and ask them to look at it and bring a recommendation back for relaxing those standards and allowance and things like that.
Well, let's, circle back. We'll put this on the agenda next board meeting. And at that time, then we'll continue this discussion on, possibly relaxing the requirements for subdivision.
If we can go ahead and start that process with the land development as well.
Mr. Chair, when does P and Z board meeting again?
Would you board like to go ahead and send this to P and Z to let them, look at?
I think that'd be a great idea.
In October? heard this again before P and Z looks at it?
I think this is two totally different issues.
Okay.
This is, we're gonna circle back to next board meeting. The consensus, do we need a consensus to send it to P and Z, or do we need to amend the agenda to do an motion?
No, you're not taking official action, you're just asking them to give a
That
position.
suits the board, we'll send it to P and Z and let them, ask them for recommendations for relaxing. This time, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. If you would, we'll be back in at, 25 till. Get unmuted.
Yes.
Okay. Call this meeting back to order. We'll continue in new business. Will be number 2, consideration possible approval of resolution 2020-09-23A, ordering the extension of the 2020 tax rolls. This has been requested by the Madison County Tax Collector. Does anybody have any information on that?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yes.
We do this resolution, almost every year. What happens is all the dates for that ad valorem tax process are set by statute. If the value adjustment board hearings don't get done by a certain time, they come back to the Board of County Commissioners and we can extend those dates, and that's what this resolution does. But I'm certain in the last 3 or 4 years, we've done it every year anyway.
Yes.
So it's just a normal kind of thing to do. And the big thing is the tax collector has to request it. We don't just do it on our own, and the tax collector did request it. She requested that I prepare this and submit it to the board.
Any questions?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Moore to approve. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That carries 5-0. At this time, we're going to move to number 3. This is discussion regarding permitting and easement issue for Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall, are you online?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to the county attorney, and then I will come back, circle back, and allow you to address the board.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, what had happened in this case was Mr. Hall had contacted the Planning and Zoning Board, and Ms. Renee Depps, you've got the documents in your packet that begin on page 201 of the packet. Mr. Hall had come into possession of a piece of property. The piece of property had on it an old mobile home. Mr. Hall had worked out a deal with a mobile home broker to set him up a new mobile home where the old mobile home had been. When he went to pull, and of course that requires a permit from the Planning and Zoning Department, or from the Building Department. Requires a mobile home setup permit. When he went to go pull the permit, he was not able to get the permit because he did not have legal access to the piece of property where the old mobile home, family property, or son of Mr. Hall held. Now, Mr. Hall had said he didn't understand why that was a requirement because he, in fact, did have rights to the property. In response, I talked to Mr. Hall and I sent him the version of our LDRs, which is on page 203 of your packet. It's C1 access management. Prior to issuance of a development permit, a parcel of land must have a minimum of a 15-foot wide deeded access point to a county or private road or deeded easement for ingress or egress. So there's a requirement that says you have to have that. Now, so where we sit today, I do not believe that you all would have the authority to grant him a permit, a setup permit. But that requirement is in your land development regulations. You all, as Board of County Commissioners, you have the authority to amend your land development regulation if you so choose. And so that's why it's being brought up to you to see what you would like to do. This is the requirement, though, to have deeded legal access is a standard requirement. I don't know of any land development regulations that don't have that requirement anywhere. And it's one of those requirements that is there to protect the public generally, because the problem would be, let's say Mr. Hall got a mobile home setup permit and set up his mobile home. This requirement may catch the next one, and it also mimics the requirement that lenders have. Lenders are not going to take a mortgage on a piece of property that doesn't have legal access. And so that's why it's there. But that said, if you all wish to amend your land development regulations, you can start that process or however you like to.
Mr. Hall, would you like to address the board, sir?
Yes, sir. First, I want to start by saying that I hope everyone is staying safe in these times. And for those who don't know me, again, my name is Robert Hall. I'm a 100% disabled Army veteran. Currently, I am homeless. I purchased a mobile home back in I want to say the beginning of June. And in purchasing that mobile home, I had already had the property It's a property that my family has owned for 70 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. With doing that, my family owned that property, and the person who owned that property before him and my great grandfather were friends. So there was never, easement issue at that point. The person who owns the property in front of me, however he came into that property, I don't know the details. But with him doing that, that property was not being used at that time. There was a mobile home there. I've paid a lot of money to get that property semi-cleaned and that mobile home properly demolished. And from that, me and the person who owns that property, we had a discussion over a year ago about, hey, I'm about to be getting out of the military. And this property I grew up on, and I have dreams to be back here. With that, the person who owns that property, me and him were we discussed some terms of an easement agreement, and he ran it by his attorney. And from that, it came to when the easement was presented back to me, there was things in that easement that I would never agree to. That easement had things as if I die or he died, the easement is a void easement, and I don't think that's the way easements work. Easement should be for the term of that property. In further research, speaking with Mr. Tommy Reeves, I came to find out that the person who owns that property is represented by Mr. Reeves, and to me, it kind of started to throw a lot of red flags. I would speak with Mr. Reeves, and he would mimic some of the same things that me and this person had discussed. With me ever mentioning those things, my property sits about 30 yards from a county maintained road. This person wants me to go about 300 yards down a power line, crossing over several other people's property and a creek to get to my property, when I sit literally 30 yards off the road. So I don't see if we can get as far as to come up with an easement agreement, between two men, just sitting down and talking. I don't see how it would be very difficult to just say, here's the easement. If money's involved, then that is what it is. But to sit and try to go around, and when the attorney gets involved, you put all these different terms on the agreement. And like I said, it leaves me homeless. I have things going on in my own personal life, but I don't even have a stable place to live right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Did I understand you to say that you had worked an agreement out with the landowner between you and the property county road for an easement?
Yes, sir. He did agree to give me an easement verbally, and he was saying that he would be, happy to have me back, there, because he had some issues with, I guess, people coming back there who didn't belong. And it's both of our issue, because at one point they were using our property, our family property, because no one had been there so long. So someone being back there would put watch on not only his property but mine. But when the agreement became, a legal draft, there was things, like I said, that was put on that agreement that just logically didn't make sense for me or the bank. The bank read the same agreement, and it was just like, there's no way that we would even approve that. Even though the bank only, like I said, it's a home only mobile home, they're not financing the land. The land is already purchased.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rhodes.
The access easement he's talking about is on page 211 of your packet. The access easement was prepared by Mr. Stetzer in my office, not me. I don't represent Mr. Kohler, who is the seller of the easement. But so I don't know anything about the easement other than it says it's prepared by my law firm.
Does anybody on the board members have any questions or comments on Mr. Hall? Hearing none, Mr. Hall, we will further on. It appears that you will, to fall under the policies, you will have to procure some type of easement between you and the adjacent landowner, sir.
If I may ask a question, and I don't think it's very long. even if I never get this problem resolved, because at this point it seems as if I'm at the fate of the person who owns the property. I do believe that that this should be like to, I don't know if y'all have this come up often, but something that Madison County should definitely address as far as, like I said, people who have no other option in stable living conditions. Here I am, a veteran of this country, sleeping in my truck. And I do believe that Madison County should definitely go back and look at that, and there should be some sort of exemption to easement issues, and there definitely should be some sort of how can I say it, middleman from the county in these issues, because I mean that can definitely leave people, and as if myself, in a very tough predicament. If this guy decides if he ever never wants to agree to an easement, here I am with a home that I can never live in on property that my family's owned since before he was born.
Mr. Hall, we understand your dilemma and feel for you, but we do have land regulation guides that we have to follow through with, sir. If there be no more discussion, we will move on to item number 4. This will be the review and possible approval of interlocal agreement for small county surtaxes, and this will be presented by Mr. Reeves.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Beginning on page 214 of your packet, there's an interlocal agreement for a red line version of an interlocal agreement. To give you some background, originally in 1988, the county by referendum approved a 1-penny sales tax to build what was then the new jail. Now it's 30 years old at this point. Yeah. But anyway, this was approved by referendum. Now taxes, sales taxes all have to be authorized by statute. At that time, the only statute that was available that allowed a sales tax required the referendum, and it had to be for physical facilities like that. After we took them, I think it was 20 years to pay off the jail, some amount of time anyway, to pay off the jail. During that time, the legislature came back and they authorized the counties to levy what's called a small county surtax. So we could replace that 1-penny sales tax with a different 1-penny sales tax that could be used for a great variety of things, just about anything we wanted to use it for. The trick was, though, with that 1-penny sales tax, the small county surtax, the county had to divide that money with the municipalities based upon a statutory formula. Now, what the county and the cities agreed to was to use that money, and by interlocal agreement, they agreed to use that money for certain things. So what the last version of the interlocal agreement provided was that we would use the 1/2 of the sales tax for emergency medical services. The thought being that was something that was a service that was provided in the incorporated and unincorporated area, and neither the cities nor the county had to provide that service. So that seemed to be a good place for that money to go. And then we also used the money to pay back the loan from DEP where we got the money to run utilities to the interstate. And each of the municipalities had utilities run to the interstate exchange that's right off of that municipality, so they all shared in that. And I believe that was it. Now, what has happened though over the years is we also did indigent care. We also allowed that up to $125,000, $250,000 can be spent on indigent care for the hospital. Now, and we've been doing that for years, but what has happened is we've had every year we don't overspend our budget, and so we've accumulated a significant amount of money in that pot that hasn't been expended. I think we're up to $750,000. Yeah. And so anyway, and so what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what can we do to make that work better. So what we're proposing is that that you all would approve the interlocal, and then we take it to the cities, and if they would approve it, we'd have a new agreement. So let me show you what the agreement says. If you go to And on page 1, the new language just recognizes that there was a previous one. Nothing's changed on page 2. On page 3, starting in paragraph 3, that's just some housekeeping, some typos and all that. We did need a statement that said the tax proceeds, that defined term includes any interest accrued thereon. So that's in there. Now, the number 4 is where we start what the money can actually be spent for. Now, the first thing is on the indebtedness for the running the utilities to the interchanges. And Mr. Clerk, that payment is
It's about $233,000 yearly.
Yearly. And
I
so
don't have the exact number in front of me.
now, the first one there, 4.11, is a indebtedness evidence by loan agreement with Bank of America. What that was, when this was done, the running the utilities to the interstate, DEP would not loan you the money and then you would go build. What they required was that you go borrow the money from a bank. You would then run the utilities, you pay for all that, get them run. They would then come in and inspect everything, see that it was right, and they would pay off that loan and basically refinance it. How that worked. 4.11 was that original lender, was Bank of America, is who we used. Now that loan has long since been paid back, and so that's why that's stricken now. We don't have that anymore. 4.2 is the indebtedness evidence by state revolving loan agreement number WWS76801P. That is that agreement that we have with FDEP that we have to pay those funds on every year. Now, the next one is any indebtedness incurred to refinance or pay the above indebtedness. So that's if we ever found a better deal and wanted to refinance that, we could. I don't believe there is a better deal though, because it was a pretty good rate at that time. So anyway, that's number 1. So 4.1, the first thing you do is you pay the state revolving loan fund. Now, 4.2 is also dealing with that. What 4.2 basically says is that we all agree that until that money's paid off, we're not going to try to get out of this agreement. We're not going to try to amend the agreement. And it's pretty much stayed the same. There's some capitalization that needs to be changed. Now, number 5. During each fiscal year, the tax proceeds which remain after servicing the above indebtedness. So the first thing you do is you pay the DEP loan, and then whatever's left, under 5.1, you can expend that to provide emergency medical services to the residents of the incorporated and unincorporated areas of the county. And now what it used to say was, provided that no more than half of the total tax proceeds collected during a fiscal year may be so expended. Now, we're recommending that we delete that because I think you're going to find that those expenses are greater, and it's going to end up being better for the county if we can pull that money out of it. And it'll also probably avoid accumulations like we've had happen since then. Now, the next one is under 5.2. We've also got the ability to fund medical treatment for indigent patients, and that's limited to $250,000 per year under 5.2.3, and that's not being changed. So that would be would stay the same. Then what we've added, number 6, is to allow us to deal with the accumulation of the account. It says, notwithstanding the above, at any time and from time to time, the county may find that a sum of money, which is part of the tax proceeds, so that's the accumulated amount of money, is not necessary, and at that time, for the purposes otherwise set out herein, declare such sum of money to be surplus and direct the clerk to distribute such sum of money to the parties, which is the county and the 3 municipalities, as a surplus fund payment. Thereupon, the clerk shall withdraw the surplus fund payment from the tax proceeds and disperse the surplus fund payment to the parties. The clerk shall disperse the surplus fund payment by dividing the surplus fund payment among the parties pursuant to the statutory formula for the division of the tax proceeds provided in reference in section 218.62, using population figures in effect for the year of the disbursement and paying to each party its share thereof. So what that means is that in times like this, when you have an accumulation, the board is allowed to say, okay, we think this amount of money we don't need to keep in reserve anymore. Clerk, disperse that to the parties. Then the clerk takes that amount of money, he figures out the statutory statutory formula that would be in effect if we didn't have this, interlocal agreement, and he just disperses that out to give the county its share and each of the cities their share. So y'all would just say, we think X number of dollars needs to be dispersed, and give that to the clerk, and then he takes it from there and disperses it according to that statutory formula. Okay? And that's different, and that's what's gonna allow us to, if we do have these accumulations from time to time, y'all will be able to deal with them. And in a way that the city shouldn't object to, because you're giving them their piece of the money too, you know. And then I think that is all of the substantive changes on that. So really, the two substantive changes are giving y'all the ability to disperse to the city a portion of the surplus money, and taking out the limitation that we can only use half of that fund for EMS services, which again benefits the cities, as much as it can.
I got the second part of this presentation now. So in front of you, and I apologize to people listening on the phone, but the documents I'm fixing to reference are available publicly, already on the internet, and I can make them available if people want to ask for them. I don't mind emailing them to whoever. The other part of that, so if you start with the sheet that looks like this, it came from our county's audit from 2019. This should be the third sheet in those papers I stapled and gave to you. There's a highlighted area. I don't know if you can see it's highlighted on y'all's copy. Y'all's copy is black and white, but it's $770,445. That's the amount of money that's in reserve in that small county surtax fund, right? So that's the amount of money that was sitting there as of September 30th, 2019. That's what I know is there. I mean, I could project what maybe there for the rest of the year, but I'd rather go with a number I know than a projection. So, and Tommy mentioned earlier about the payment to DEP. That payment is $117,811.29. We pay it twice a year for a total of $235,622.58. The reason I say that is because what I'm going to ask is that you go ahead and allow me to have a number that you would disperse if all the cities agree to this interlocal agreement, right? So I would want to keep back a certain amount to cover that loan payment at any given time. So if you held back $250,000, which would be plenty to cover the $235,000 and some change, that would allow a disbursement of $520,000. If you look at the other two sheets I gave you, which come from the Florida Department of Revenue's Office of Tax Research, local discretionary sales tax, surtax estimates, that's these two. At the bottom of the one page, it says 5 of 12. At the bottom, it shows you the percentage that the county would get, and this is on the yearly basis. So that's the percentage. And that's that percentage Tommy was talking about when we disperse the money, the percentages that we would disperse to the county and then to the city. The second page has the city's dispersals in a percentage of 3.68, blah, 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 that goes out forever. So what that equates to for everybody then is, if you were to authorize the disbursement of the $520,000 and using these percentages that are available here, the county would get out of this distribution $417,015.27. The city of Madison would get $75,341.19. The town of Lee would get $8,494.11. And the town of Greenville would get $19,149.43. And that's based on this formula that's given to us by DOR. You know, that's what the disbursement would be if you authorize that, and the county has then agreed to go with this interlocal agreement.
And what was that $19,000?
Sure. I can also email this to you. I mean, I don't mind emailing it to you, but it's $19,149.43.
Thank you.
Now,
Go ahead.
the figures, the $235,622, those payments have been paid this year. That's those.
Yeah, yeah, so they're not gonna affect this reserve amount at all.
So that will be.
They've been paid already, yes, sir.
That's all this year has been paid, and that will be holding the $235,000 $50,000.
That, I'm just holding that back, so at any given time, if something were to happen to this money, I still have a payment sitting there. I
Absolutely.
mean, every year, in theory, we're gonna bring in, so this sheet here tells you what the estimated distribution is for the year coming up. So if you look at that, back where it says Madison BOCC, the estimated distribution for us is that $1 million number. That's what a half cent should bring in for us, estimate. So, oh, I'm sorry, it's on the, well, 1.3 is the county total. Yeah, that's what we would expect.
Yeah.
For the county total. So in theory, we're gonna have that $200,000, $235,000 every year to pay out of DIV. I just would like to hold back something, but, you know,
And we
like Ms.
should,
Reese
we
was saying,
should build a
occasionally,
little surplus every year anyway.
right, occasionally a surplus is happening, and what we don't have right now, when we went to look at it, was there was no ability for us to distribute that surplus anyway by that interlocal agreement. I don't think at the time, in 2011, anybody anticipated a surplus. You know, and there is now, and that's, you know, it's just a way for us to be able to disperse it from now on easily, and it benefits all the municipalities in the county, you know.
I think it would always make sense to have a rainy day fund.
And it allows us, I mean, we don't have to do this disbursement every year, we can keep it in there every year.
That was my question.
It's at any time the county deems, you guys can do that.
You can't disperse it at all without cutting the cities in for their.
Right. So you can't rob that fund without, you know, doing the cities.
Right.
So there's no-
Commissioner Martin, you got a question?
Tommy, so what if the cities don't want signs or won't agree to it? What options do we have?
Well, not a lot. I mean, you leave the money in the fund.
Just leave it in there. So this disbursement is set by statute, the percentages?
If we didn't have the interlocal, then when the money came in, it would be dispersed this way, right? So that's your default position. If you don't agree otherwise, that's the way it's dispersed. And so let's say the interlocal just went away, that's what they would get, you know. So, and that's why we drafted it this way. It seemed like that was fair. I mean, that's, you know, that's what they're entitled to anyway. Now, you probably would not want the interlocal to go away though, because, see, you've got in there right now that everybody's kind of chipping in to pay that, DEP loan. And I mean, theoretically, you know, you've got $700,000 in it. What are we still owe, $5 million or?
I can't remember, we talked about it the other day,
Yeah.
was it like 20 payments or something like that?
Yeah, 20 payments. So I mean, at some point over the next several years, you'd have enough to go ahead and pay that off, you know. So I certainly wouldn't, if they won't agree, I certainly wouldn't, cancel the interlocal agreement until you paid that off, you know. And then once you paid it off, you know, y'all may want to look.
Any more questions of, attorney or?
I was gonna ask, how many years is this $770,000 built up? How many,
Since 2011.
since 11 or
Since
what?
the inception of that
Okay.
original interlocal, which is 2011.
Well, I thought it was 11, I just wanted to double check, okay.
And it's probably increased over time. It probably didn't, I wouldn't say it's been 9 installments, or whatever that would be to make that number.
No, and I can tell you, when we did that, it was less than $1 million a year. But I want to say when we looked at it, what was that, 2011? I remember thinking it was less than $1 million a year. So it's grown pretty, I mean, what is that, 30%?
Yeah.
Any more comments or questions? I'll enter
A motion to approve.
motion by Commissioner Martin to approve this, interlocal and to send it to the municipalities for their approval. Second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, if y'all are in favor of the dispersing the 520, y'all could go ahead and approve that, and then that way, when it's presented to the cities, that's, hey, if y'all all approve it, we'll go ahead and disperse the money.
And y'all can go ahead and approve that now. That way, when I do present it, I can present a real for sure number they're gonna get.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve if the interlocal is signed by the municipalities for the clerk to disperse the funds that we talked about. Motion by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Davis. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I guess, sitting on the board, I just wondered, is there any way to increase a little bit to the hospital, or is that not possible?
I can speak a little bit to that if y'all wanna vote, and I'll talk about that after.
Well, I
That's
didn't
how
know
that
they wanted
happened.
in discussion before the vote was, but I was just curious.
While we're in discussion.
I'm gonna be honest with you, they owe us some money.
Well, I know.
I want them to pay us some money
Yeah.
before we give them any more. I really wanna take some away if they ain't gonna pay us. That's just how I feel about it.
Mr. Clerk, you gonna answer that?
So there's a couple ways to look at this. That money is $250,000 is set aside for indigent care. And the way that the hospital gets that money, we're not just writing them a check for $250,000. They send us billing, people have to qualify. There's a statute that it goes by that they have to qualify by. And there's other money that's provided to us that we're a pass-through for. It has to meet those same qualifications. And ultimately, the hospital generally does end up requesting the whole $250,000. And there's been a year, I think, in the past 5 years they didn't. But I mean, they probably requested $220,000 of it. The other way to look at it though is, this is money we're setting aside for people who are unable to pay. And if they're not able to pay, then, I mean, they're still not gonna be able to pay. You know what I'm saying? Are you hurting the hospital, or are you hurting those individuals who are gonna have a bill that they can't pay? That's what I'm saying. There's a couple ways to look at it. And, I get it. I feel like Commissioner Martin also, they do owe us money, but at the same time, I don't know that this is
Well,
I felt like this was the avenue to get it back. Now I'm not so sure it is. I've talked to somebody and they changed my opinion on this.
well, I guess my reason for bringing it up, and I'm not, well, I agree with Commissioner Martin, but I also, that's sort of like a separate pot of money that they owe us, not the indigent care money. And I know those bills keep, hospital bills, of course, go up, as we all know. We all have insurance and we all have to pay hospital bills, but, I guess in those indigent care bills, you know, they're, of course, the problem we run into, and you've heard me say this before, our hospital emergency room gets used as a doctor's office because so many people don't have insurance and doctors turn them away, and so they use, the emergency room is used as a doctor's office, not an emergency room. And, and then the hospital can't deny them, so they get stuck with a bill, and and basically that $250,000 is going to help them offset that, which is different from the money that was on the other part. So that's
Any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? 5-0. Okay, that moves us down to item number 5, and this is going to be turned over to Tommy, but this is review and possible approval of the county manager's contract.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, again, on page 232 of your packet is, we have the county manager employment agreement. Ms. Pickles and the chair, myself, have gone over this. What we did was, we started with Mr. Coughlin's contract and changed it and made it a little simpler. I'd like to point out some differences, though. We left, and of course, on number 5, dealing with salary, we left that blank so that you all can, of course, you don't need my advice on the dollar figures and all. Now, one thing we changed here concerning salary, Mr. Coughlin had a increase in his contract provided for an automatic increase that is the same as a member of the Board of County Commissioners. So if y'all got a 0.5%, he got a 0.5%. Ms. Pickles, in hers, it provides that she gets the same thing, the same increases that you all give to your board employees. So she would participate, if you did a 2% across the board for your board employees, that would happen automatically for her salary. So it's different in that regard. It's also got in here that it has an incentive for Ms. Pickles to get a master's degree. The county's not paying for that, but upon her getting a master's degree, this has an automatic increase of 5%. And it's a master's degree from a accredited institution in public administration or a related field. Okay. Now, the, benefits are the same, for retirement system, cell phone. The, insurance or the, personal days and sick days are different because obviously Ms. Pickles is already a county employee. She already has accumulated personal and sick days. When we brought in Mr. Kaufman, he was coming from another agency, was not bringing in. So y'all had to basically spot him some, accumulated days. So that's different. Now, that's in number 6. That's why number 6 is so small. Number 7 is the automobile. Mr. Kaufman had it in his contract that he got the use of an automobile, but got to drive the automobile back and forth, from his home. This contract does not provide Ms. Pickles to do that. She would drive her own vehicle into work, and then once she gets here, she has get a county vehicle, but she doesn't take it home at night. Here, the severance is the same severance that, number 8, the same severance that y'all gave, Mr. Kaufman. And it provides a certain amount of severance, but if there's misconduct or anything like that, she would not get any severance pay. It provides, like Mr. Kaufman's, that she doesn't get any severance pay at all unless she signs a release of all liability, which is the same way we did with Mr. Kaufman. And I think that is it. As far as, and then Mr. Kaufman's had a provision where Mr. Kaufman could receive extra income by acting as a grants writer and all that. That's all been deleted. And so I think that is it as far as the differences between the one y'all did with Mr. Kaufman and all that. So, are there any questions about how it's different? So if the contract's acceptable, I think I'll need to decide on a salary, and then once you decide on a salary, we can prepare the contract and have it approved.
Mr. Chairman, as chairman and Tommy and I have discussed this with Sherilyn, and when we set our budget, we had to figure out a salary to be able to set the budget, and we came up on a figure, and the reason it's left blank is because the board now can alter it if they see fit. But initially, to give Billy the numbers so he can make the budget work, the salary was set at $62,500, which was agreeable to Ms. Pickles, and it would be contingent on the board's approval. But that's why it was left blank. That was going to be my motion. Yes. That was my motion.
So, any discussion before we go into a motion? You have a motion?
I said that was my motion. We accept this contract, that's presented and with the salary of $62,500.
Okay. We have a motion. Motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0. I will say that if we take and figure what we were paying the prior county manager and Sherilyn's prior, and add those two together, when we come back into the 62, and then that leaves us ample room to pay for the assistant, or administrative assistant, and still be in good financial shape. So, that being said, we're to the bottom of our list. And,
did we approve going ahead and advertise not to or last meeting? I know we discussed it. We did go ahead and advertise it?
Sherilyn now,
Not yet, okay, we
process
did,
now,
we did talk.
Sherilyn's in the process now of writing up the job requirements and description, and then it'll circle back around and take on. Mr. Reeves, anything from the county attorney?
No, sir, unless you have questions.
Mr. Billy?
Only one thing, don't forget the final budget hearing, Monday, 28th, 5:30.
Ms. Pickles?
Just a few things. One, looks like we're gonna get another, allotment of CARES Act funding. This time it's gonna be 20% instead of 25%, 20%. There are a few things that have to take place before we'll be able to get that. Obviously, we have to expend the first 25% allocation, and we also have to report those expenditures in the software program that's been set up by DEM called Salesforce. I've spoken with DSI, and they are going to be doing that reporting for us. So they'll be getting with Billy and I to get that information to be able to report. They have said once this 20% has been given, any future funds will be done on a reimbursement basis. So, the committee is going to meet with DSI on Monday, and we're going to look at the overall plan that you approved and look at some options, and come back with some recommendations on some things that you might want to consider prioritizing, just in case that this is all that's going to be fronted to us. The veteran service position is still open. It will close this Friday at 12 p.m. We do have a few applicants for that, but it is still open until this Friday. The MCORS meeting for the Suncoast Connector is tomorrow. They are actually viewing at the Madison Country Club for that, for the public to actually go there and view that meeting. And that starts tomorrow morning at 9. You can also register and just watch it online wherever you like. But they are inviting the public to go out to the country club to be able to view that meeting that begins tomorrow morning at 9. In one of the maps that they presented at the last meeting, they do have multiple options for where this toll road would terminate. One option is in Jefferson County, 3 are in Madison County. And they have identified 21, 14, and 53 as possible routes. But everything they have proposed would end at I-10, but no final determination has been made. One more thing, I was going to pass this out. The National Association of Counties has what they call a High Performance Leadership Academy available. And this is for government officials, elected, appointed staff. They have made scholarships available. Typically, an enrollment for a person would be $1,895, but with scholarships and an additional discount, we could potentially have 3 enrolled in this Leadership Academy for $1,695. So I just need to know if any of you are interested, if anybody would like to pursue this, we can let NACO know. You can think about that and let me know.
Okay. So just give you a background, it got sent to me, and it's something that they were doing, they thought clerks were interested in. And I passed it along to Sherilyn, knowing that she's a new county manager, it might be something good for her. And I would be interested if y'all are. I was just trying to say that if nobody else is interested, I'm interested.
Right, yeah.
But I thought that it'd probably be good for her as a new county manager.
Very beneficial.
What's the form of delivery? Is this going to be?
It's online.
Online.
It is online.
Yes, online.
And it's like a 4-week class or something, or 4-month class. 4-month class.
Yeah.
They've got different times you can sign up for. The next one, the one that starts the soonest would start in January and go through April.
Mr. Chairman, I would definitely be interested.
I think it would be very good for someone, and especially Sherilyn being our new county manager, especially.
I'd recommend she do it, definitely do it.
Chairman, with all due respect, I want to check with the way that the resolution is worded. I want to run this now that it's been finalized with DEO to make sure, because it's more in broad swaths instead of very specifically covering each one of the rules and policies that we have to. So I want to make sure, because I don't want them to kick us out. I want to make sure that we don't have to denote each one of the the policies and procedures that we're adopting, both for the, housing assistance plan as well as the rules and procedures in which the houses will be built. So I want to check that with them. If this is okay, because you have permission to sign it, then we're on terra firma. If not, I asked the board that after we have the meeting on the 28th for the budget, we could come back and adopt it. It's precisely as they wanted us to, according to each section, and outline that into a resolution itself.
No problem.
That needs to be advertised.
It would have to be
It would have to be advertised. When will you know?
You call in the morning.
Okay, if you would, circle back to Ms. Pickles and let her know, because we'll have to advertise it, but that would be no problem. Okay? Anything else? Okay, Commissioner comments, Commissioner Kelly. Mr. Moore? Mr. Bassett? Mr. Moore?
I was happy to see the CARES Act online. So that's, I guess people can start filling out the application.
Yes, sir, that has been advertised, the small business grant.
Right.
That's on our website. We did put something out on Facebook about it. I did pass it along to the chamber so that they could send it out to their membership, and also ask them to share our Facebook post. And the number and email that's listed goes directly to our consulting firm. And they're working with people to set up appointments to meet with them over here in Madison to provide any assistance they may need in filling out that application.
Sure, and along those lines, I have personally handed out 2 of those packets across the street. I don't know how many total we've handed out, but personally, I've given 2, so I know there may be others.
We have a stack upstairs too that people can pick up a paper copy in addition to being on.
I know that DSI knows that the sooner they can get all that stuff in, put it in the program and get it approved, we'll get that other 20% released, which will allow us to hopefully.
So remember on that first 25%, some of that involves the city signing those agreements, those indemnification agreements, or whatever they were, so we got to get around to city meetings. And that was part of this interlocal, if I could do both at once, that's kind of what both of them.
And we did set a deadline of October 5th for those business grant applications to be due. So they were given a couple of weeks.
What was the date that the DSI was going to be here to answer questions for small business, that they set 2 days?
They're scheduled to be here the 29th, starting the 29th. And they were going to be here, it kind of depended on how many people called and scheduled, but they were pretty much blocking out from the 29th to the end of the week.
Basically start next week.
Right, starting next Tuesday,
to Friday.
and they were going to plan to be here from 8 to 5. They did say if people needed to be later, then they would schedule that and make those arrangements, but it's just kind of depending on how many people called to set up an appointment.
Mr. Chair, I just want to mention the census deadline is fast approaching. Well, I say fast approaching, but it might be extended to the end of the year to the pandemic that we're in. But we haven't.
Very, very important.
Very important.
And
that's all I have.
I have nothing from the chair.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.